Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm so glad that you could join us today. And I'm going to introduce my guest, Reka Robinson. She's an NLP Certified Life Coach, also known as the Single Girls Life Coach. And she's the founder of Single You Academy and the host of Single You, the podcast. So there's so much more that she is doing and has done, but I want to let her share that with us all. So welcome to the show, Reka.
All right, Deborah. No, thank you for having me. It's an honor. Anytime somebody allows me to speak on their platform, I'm like, wow, me? Okay, that's good. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why don't we get started?
Okay.
And you can share with us how you got started with.
So how I got started, being, quote unquote, the Single Girls Life Coach and the NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So how I got started, it actually, it stems from my story, my background of coming out of an emotionally abusive relationship and really going on this journey of trying to figure out, Deborah, how the heck did I get in a relationship like that? Like, what was that? And while I was in it, in retrospect now, I know it was abuse, but while I was going through it, I had no idea. He wasn't physically abusing me. It didn't look like what I saw in the movies. And so there was a lot of confusion going on in this relationship. And again, in retrospect, I know now that it was emotional abuse. There was some narcissism going on, some gaslighting and some love bombing. And that relationship lasted for about 2 years. And when I got out of that relationship, again, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I thought I was a smart woman. Wait, I went to Howard University. I have a 2-parent household. Like, what the heck was that? And it really started with curiosity to figure out what I had just went through because it was different than anything I had experienced. And the journey started with 3 questions. That relationship ended in June 2017. And then December 2017, I found myself on a solo trip in Mexico. I was in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and I told myself I was going to go and ask myself a lot of questions. And the 3 that I asked myself was, who am I? Who does God say I am? And how am I going to show up in this world from now on? And those are the questions that started this journey to where I am now, because I learned a lot in answering those questions and figuring out who I am and figuring out how I wanted to show up in this world from now on. And then, as Maya Angelou says, once you learn, you teach. So 2018 was a year of growth for me. And yes, I'm still growing, and the journey is, a self-love journey is continuous. It's forever. But I definitely have healed that part of me. And I really was like, you know what? In fact, reading Pastor Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life. I don't know. Have you ever heard of that book? Okay. Yeah. So in the book, he explains how your greatest shame will be the thing that heals others. And that really started the trajectory of me saying, okay, yes. Cause at first I wasn't going to tell anybody what I went through. I was super embarrassed, couldn't understand. But then when I read that book, I really started thinking about all of the women, the shackles that I could release from a lot of women. And so, so then I just said, okay, well, Maya Angelou, I'm going to put your little quote to the test, and here we go. So, so that's how that is a condensed story of how this whole Single You platform started, for sure.
Well, that's so interesting what you're talking about. People think, first of all, to recognize the abuse, because maybe people are thinking abuse is just someone being punched in the face, as opposed to the emotional. So they're thinking, oh, that's not really abuse, or they're second guessing themselves. Did you find that it took a while for you to really understand what was going on?
Oh yeah. Even when I got out of the relationship, I had no idea what happened to me. I just knew this was really hard, harder than I had ever experienced before. Did I have some maybe, things that were familiar from other relationships. Yes. But this was the worst. I don't know if you know, well, of course you know who Oprah is, but she has this quote where she says, you know, life comes at you in whispers. And if you don't listen, then you'll finally get the brick wall. So that relationship from 2015 to 2017 was my brick wall. Like I ran like in the face. And yeah, because they didn't tell us, and they being whoever raised us, my parents, the generation before us, they did not really explain, okay, yes, so we want you to get married and we want you to have kids, because let's talk about the pressure from our older aunties and our parents to get married and have kids, right? They want us to get this quote unquote goal in life, but there was no blueprint. So you just think, as we're dating in this world, oh, okay, well, yeah, my vagina, I'm getting butterflies. My vagina is saying he's the one. So I like him. You know, it's like, I like him, he likes me. And we just go into action, and we think that's the formula to getting this healthy relationship, right? And so, yeah, when I was going through it, I had no idea. And then when I got out of it and I started reading books and trying to figure out what happened to me, that's when I found out. And I was like, well, damn, that was...
What was that?
Told me, right? I was like, well, I wish somebody would have told me. Just come on now. Like,
right.
Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because what you were saying is so true, because people are thinking, well, I'm not that type of person who would fall into that. I'm too smart for that. All the things you think that you believe this couldn't happen to you.
Yeah, especially because, you know, I know this is a woman's entrepreneur podcast. So a lot of us who may not be getting physically abused, and we're thinking, I'm way too smart for that. That is abuse. There are other ways we're being abused: emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever. But we think, hold on, because my career is dope. Like in this lane of like career, you're climbing the ladder, you built your business. You're like, I'm a smart, independent, dope woman. You know, if we were in the club and they were like, where are my independent women at who love themselves? You'd be like, me.
Right.
But then in this lane, in this other lane of relationships, you are allowing men to walk all over you. You are allowing yourself to minimize yourself for him. You are allowing yourself to set yourself on fire to keep him warm. You are allowing him to manipulate and dictate the relationship. Because a lot of us, especially if we're faith-based, we get confused on what submission means, right? And we just begin to follow this man because, again, attraction is, we think that's the key to healthy relationships. I'm just attracted to him. So we deem, okay, I'm attracted to him. I like him. Let him lead me. Girl, where is it? So then we get into this ride or die mentality, and it's like, why do we have to die? Where are we riding? What are the GPS coordinates of this? Are we going to Omaha, or are we going to I need to figure, you know, like we feel like we don't get a say so in the relationship because, quote unquote, he's the man. I need to submit. Let him be a leader. But if he's not a leader, if he can't even lead himself in his own life, how is he going to lead you?
That's it. That's right there.
Yeah. And so you, career woman who thinks that you are smarter than the woman who is being physically abused, you're not. Because you don't actually understand abuse. And I don't know if you're watching that series called Made on Netflix. Are you watching it?
No, I have it in my queue with a bunch of things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I won't give anything away. What I will say is the overall message is teaching us, one of the overall messages. There's another, like, how single moms aren't supported in this country. That's a whole nother thing. But one of the overall messages is how she was abused, emotionally. And they're highlighting that this is abuse, whatever. Even though he's not hitting her, she is being abused. And it takes her a while to realize that and understand. So,
do you think that in terms of women in business and like what you are doing and working with, do sometimes women feel like they're not comfortable being in that leadership, and they feel, oh, I'm leading in this way, maybe I have to let him lead in these other ways, or maybe not comfortable, you know, I'm sure you kind of know where I'm trying to get to, but
yeah, like you
you
don't
know,
want to boast too much about your accomplishments in front of
right.
him. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so funny you say that because, I'm in a group chat. Of course we all are, right? With, some of my Howard girlfriends, and we just had this conversation. I say, you know what I'm getting sick of hearing is how much women are at fault for being single because they have these careers. The messaging that we're starting to get from, I won't name drop any of these male gurus, quote unquote, that are out there, whatever. But the messaging that we're getting is that it is your fault that you are single. And one of those fault reasons is because you got this career. How dare you? And I literally had a man tell me I had it two together. I've had that said to me. Girl, listen. And at first I used to try to hide my accomplishments because I didn't want to, quote unquote, be intimidating. But now I have learned I am not intimidating. He is intimidated. So
That's it.
Whatever level I'm on that he thinks he's not on, that's on him. That is 100% on him.
That's it.
And that is the sign of insecurity. That is the sign of a man who doesn't like himself, doesn't like his place in life. That is a sign of a man who is threatened by you and your accomplishments. And guess what? That man will abuse you. He will abuse you.
Yep.
Because people hurt people, right? And I'll say this one quote too. T.D. Jakes says, he said this in a sermon once and I wrote it down because it stood out to me. And I was like, that's so true. And he said that he never met a man that liked himself that beat his wife. You see what he's saying?
Yeah.
So you think about how many men you dated that didn't like themselves. Therefore, they took it out on you. Because when people like themselves, they good. They're like, I can express I'm emotionally intelligent. If something offends me, I can express it well. We can have a conversation and da-da-da. But the insecure person will be the passive aggressive, narcissistic, abusive man. And I bypassed those red flags in pretty much all of my relationships, especially the one from 2015 to 2017. That is when I was still in that space of like, oh, I gotta like minimize myself and dim my light. Let him shine and da da da. So I know exactly what you're saying. Yes, we women do that and we have to stop. Be proud of your accomplishment. The man that God has for you will root for you and be your biggest cheerleader.
That is so important. Everything you're saying makes so much sense, because that also come to mind because I've seen a documentary on Hulu a while back about authors who, these women had gotten, really popular and they made a lot of money, like self-publishing certain kinds of books and they were really popular, but then their husbands started to get really not happy that they were bringing in all this money and suddenly they felt, I'm like, well, I didn't get it because well, she's bringing all this money in and now your life is better but that's not how they were looking at it. And some of those marriages broke up because he couldn't get it together with his wife now, making so much money and being a center of attention with her fans and all that. And that was an interesting part of it.
And that's why, now that we're older, we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s or whatever, we're not 22 anymore. So I don't have time to fall for your potential. I don't have time to hope and pray you become the man I want you to be. You are who you are, and I have to decide if I want to put up with that, right? And so we have to be finding men who are on the same journey of working on themselves. So then when, a shift happens where, maybe he's triggered by something or what have you, he can communicate that and then you can grow together. The people get divorced because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them in what you were speaking of those writers, because they didn't grow together. And people grow and change and morph and all of that throughout life. And if you can't do that together, that's where you're going to end up. A man who's mad because now you make more than him.
Right. Right. It just seemed like really ridiculous. And it happened to quite a few of them. It wasn't just one person. But that you said about potential, that's so true because when we're younger, it's always about potential.
Yeah. And listen, and sometimes it happens to us at 35 and 42
True.
because who is teaching us the difference between like healthy hard versus dysfunctional? Who is teaching us about self-actualization? Nobody. I just saw, a study the other day. Actually, I did some research on like, so one of the things that we have to go to school for, take a test for, take classes for is driving, right? Everybody's kind of on board that before you drive, you need to go to class and you need to get your license and whatever. But nobody is on the same page as like getting classes on who you are before you actually, start getting married and having kids and stuff like that. Like nobody focuses on, there's the hierarchy of needs, and the bottom two are like shelter and food and stuff. But the middle two are like love and belonging and esteem. And nobody gives us classes on that. So we are more likely, women of color, 1 to 3 more times more likely to be in an abusive relationship than get in a car accident in our life. You are more than likely to never get in a car accident, but you are more likely to actually be in an abusive relationship. Because again, my theory is because we're not actually having classes. We're not actually coming to a fundamental understanding of what relationships are, of who we are. So then we have a underdeveloped, over spiritualized, over fantasized view of what love and relationships are.
That's a lot to take in because it's true. We really don't have that. And then if you add in there that a lot of times a woman is taking on more responsibilities with the home or family, or even, within herself, if she's taking on more, if she has a business, if she has a career, and now there's other relationship things in there, and there's all those things that are going on. Yeah. And a lot of times a woman's going to say, she's going to blame herself when it's not going well, like what you were saying earlier. She's going to think, well, what am I doing wrong?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And when relationships end, we think it's a failure. Like I am failed. I have failed. I am a single woman. I am a failure. And we have to unlearn that. I think when breakups happen, and I'm speaking of specifically relationships, that are not marriages, but when breakups happen, if they were not fruitful, flourishing, or fulfilling, I think it's a win. I don't think it's a failure. Like you can't put, a round peg in a square hole. Like that doesn't work. So we just have to get better at learning who we are before we get into a relationship, before we have kids, before anything, before any relationship, because life, like everything rises and falls on relationships. So if your relationship is trash, your career, you're going to be struggling in that because you're sad. You're not getting enough sleep. You have all this anxiety. You're messing up your nervous system. And if we took dating, love, and relationships, learning ourselves, self-love more seriously, we would make better decisions.
That's true. It really has to start with the self-love part, because how can you really give to someone or receive from someone if you don't feel like you're worthy?
Yeah.
Then you're going to take whatever you're given to you.
Absolutely. Just to be in a relationship, to get this goal, because I'm more comfortable if I have a man.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And these are great points again, because as saying people can be out there in the world smiling and having their success, successful look and successful business, and they can be coming home to who knows what.
And the home life is a tornado. It's trash. It's heavy. It's, and women, especially Black women, we get really good at performing confidence. We just perform and tap down. I'm a confident single woman. I self-love, and you go to your brunches and you have your massages and all of that. But inside you are crying and screaming for help. But you don't have a safe space to go to. You don't know where to start. I think, one of my mentors, Pastor Darius Daniels, I don't know if you know who he is, but he is my mentor, and he says this all the time. You can be full of inspiration, but full of ignorance at the same time. So meaning every woman, especially every Black woman, can recite Maya Angelou's quote, "When people show you who they are, believe them." Full of that. You're like, yes, girl, yes, oh, yeah. But you don't know how to execute it in your life. but you're terrible at setting and keeping boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Full of inspiration, know yourself, know your worth. You can sing a good song with the best of them, but don't know how to set and keep boundaries with men.
The action.
Yeah, you are your behavior. So, but we're performing confidence, but when it comes to our track record, and so I would ask a woman listening to this, if this is resonating with you, you have to ask yourself, what do your behaviors with men show you about you?
I hope everybody who that applies to is definitely asking that question right now, because it's true. And what you're saying, particularly about Black women, is that we're trying so hard to look like we're unbothered. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to keep going. But then the inside needs tending to, and that's not what gets done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's something that we collectively have to work on seriously. But as far as you launched Single You Academy, so what inspired you to do that? What kind of work do you do there?
Yeah. So again, the inspiration for Single You Academy definitely came from coming out of that situation and going on that journey and seeing a hole in the, I guess, marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. There are relationship gurus that a lot of women follow. Again, I'm not going to name any of them, and say whatever you want about them. And there's a lot that are giving you some trash advice, but what is actually missing is they're trying to tell you how to date, or that you're at fault if you are single. Mm-hmm. What I am saying is, okay, before we even get to this dating thing, let's start with the foundation of who you are. Because again, if you're a faith-based woman, and my client base is faith-based women, the Bible talks about your foundation and building your foundation. We want to be that cement concrete foundation and not the sand foundation, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us are sand foundation. So we'll move in the wind. We flap in the wind. We try to set a boundary. We cannot keep a boundary. We're extremely loyal to him, but not loyal to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're constantly walking on eggshells because we didn't have a solid foundation, again, of the schooling around, okay, who am I? And what is my purpose? God did not send you down here just to be somebody's wife to somebody's dusty son. I promise you. God was not like, okay, let me make Deborah, and her purpose is to get married. Okay. Like, no, that's not it. That's not it. And so we have to learn, like, imagine if we started having classes about what self-love really is. And in Single You Academy, the way I define self-love, I say it is in your boundaries that you show yourself you love yourself. So imagine if we started boundary setting super young, because how many of us women have a hard time saying no, especially to men, and especially to a man we're extremely attracted to, but we ain't got no business being with him. He's so fine though. He's so fine. And he may have, like, maybe we have a list of 25 things we want in a man, and say he has 12, and then we'll just bypass the rest because he's fine. Or he got money. And we bypass all of it, right? So again, in Single You Academy, one of my clients explained it as, she was like, Reka, you actually taught me, like, you helped me unlearn a lot of the things that I learned as a woman, faith-based, growing up in church in this society. And then I got to relearn and rebuild myself on how I wanted to show up. You see, a lot of women ask me, how do I discover my worth? Or how do I be a confident woman? And I say, imagine the woman you want to be, and then do everything in your power to become her. You have to be obedient to the woman that you want to be. Right? So you may be listening to this and like, dang, man, I do that. I pass up red flags. I minimize myself. I'm constantly frustrated. I'm loyal to a man who doesn't deserve it. Okay, well, let today be the day that ends. Instead of being that woman, who is the woman that you want to be? Confident in your singleness, able to say no, able to set and keep a boundary. You want to be that woman. So now do everything in your power to become her. So that is what Single You Academy is about. And I teach 4 pillars in that program, which is know yourself deeper than your favorite color is blue. Meaning, what are your triggers? Why do you want what you want? Why do you think the way that you do about relationships? And do you need to unlearn that? So that's number 1. Number 2, it's Okay, so now that you know who you are, it's know what you want and how to get it. Because a lot of us, Deborah, will say, if you're like, okay, what kind of relationship do you want, girl? We'd be like, I want a man who lets me in. He shares his emotions. You know what I mean? Like he be taking me out or whatever. And all of that is great. You know that's what you want, but you don't know how to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's number 2. Number 3 is having the audacity to believe that you can get it. The knowing. Because we say we're women of faith, but you ain't got no faith in waiting on a man that God has for you. So God is taking too long because now I'm 38 and I still don't have a husband, or I'm divorced with 2 kids and I'm 2 years single and I need another husband, God. So you settle because you have no faith that God will actually bring that to you. Mm-hmm. And also, it's not really promised. There's no promise in the Bible that says God is going to bring you a husband. Where? It's not. And I believe that when you're walking fully and truly in your purpose, as I feel that I am, that lonely feeling is fleeting. Now, I'm not saying, listen, I still desire a husband. Men are sexy. I love men. It's great, whatever. But I don't want company anymore. I just don't want a warm body anymore. I want a purpose partner. And that takes a lot more faith than any other faith that I've got. Okay, God, we riding this thing till the wheels fall off, me and you, God. So until you part the sky and tell me this is the man you made for me, I'm chilling. And then the 4th thing is the patience to wait for it, which goes with that audacity. But we as women of color just don't believe that the man that we want exists, because we will listen to society. We will, it's hard to become what you don't see, or it's hard to believe that exists. So we see all of these, dysfunctional relationships. We come from a dysfunctional family. And so our belief is really, really tattered and stained. And I believe the more we work on ourselves and work on our relationship with God, that muscle will be strengthened.
That makes so much sense, because I think that, as you're saying, the way that we're influenced when we're very young, and even if your parents, or your mother or whoever figure in your life is trying to direct you in a positive way, but then you're in society, which has a lot of messages for young girls. And as you're getting these messages, you're getting bombarded as you go through life, and all these things trying to tell you who you should be, who you'd better be.
Yeah. Else. This is your place in the world. And if you don't get married and have kids, you're trash. Discard her. It's that looming, Gabrielle Union in her new book, says, the world is very suspicious of women who don't have kids. I will add, the world is very suspicious of single women. That pressure, it's not the same for men. It's not the same. Now, they have pressures in other areas, which is why a lot of them have not arrived at a place to actually be a good husband. But that's a whole nother conversation. This is for women entrepreneurs, so we're talking about women. But yeah, the messages that we get, man, it's really sad. It's really sad.
Exactly. And that's the thing I think that bombards women in having to listen to their own voice. And as you're saying, and also boundaries, which are so important. That's something that can certainly be an entire class or, degree program.
Right. Well, if you're looking for the class, it's in Student Academy. Now, you can get a degree on it, but it'll change the trajectory of your life for sure.
I mean, yeah, that by itself is something that is really hard. The way, I guess the way we're conditioned as women, we're never supposed to use the word no. We're not supposed to do that. And that's how a lot of things happen, where people encroach on those boundaries, and you're always checking yourself as though, did that really happen that way? Because you don't trust yourself enough to know, this isn't right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we feel bad. Women feel bad about a lot of things. When we make a decision and we're like, we want to say no, but we're like, oh, but I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
Or sometimes we judge our feelings. So even though this man is presenting himself to me, there's something about him that I'm like, you know what? This is not gonna work. We judge our feelings, especially being a faith-based woman. We think it's unchristian-like to not date him, to say no, to not, whatever. And so then we began to do things, and then we go down that slippery slope of losing ourselves because we're doing things that we knew we shouldn't do. Because how many times have you done something you knew you shouldn't do? Then 2 weeks later or 2 months later, you're like, I knew that I should not have done that. Mm-hmm. Why did I do that? That's your God voice. But we have gotten really good because of our programming society or whatever. We've gotten really good at ignoring that and saying, shh, shut up. Stop being judgmental. Be quiet. What you talking about? What? I mean, he's good. I mean, look at his job. He got a good job. You should like him. But let me tell you something. You don't owe anybody a date, period. I don't care. You're allowed to say no to anybody you want to. You owe nobody a date. You owe nobody access to you, period.
That is wonderful.
Soak it in, Deborah. Just soak it all in.
That's wonderful because it's really true. It's all that insecurity that seems to be baked into women. That you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to draw the line. You're supposed to take what you're offered if it looks good on the outside. And then all these conflicts start to come in when you know something is not right, but then you're thinking you're wrong because you've always gotten one message. And now you have to strengthen that self inside of you, as you're saying, so you can start to receive these other more positive messages that are trying to reach you, but then you're like not hearing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You are your greatest asset, and you are the thing that can change your life, the trajectory of your life. And faith comes by hearing. So what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you surrounded by? What are the messages you're receiving? You are allowed to cultivate that and be intentional with that.
There's so much good stuff is coming here. And I think really it is. It's, I'm hearing this and just, as I'm thinking about how, like I said, all the pressures that women go through, that Black women are bombarded by, and just trying to keep your head straight and focus on what's good for you and be healthy within you, and not so much just focusing on what's going on outside. Absolutely. Of you and makeup tips and all that. That's great, but we need as much focus on us within as we may focus on all the other stuff that we do.
Right. Yeah. You got your face beat so you can look like Rihanna, using Fenty, spending $300 on makeup every month, but you won't spend money on actually investing on your inner peace.
Right.
You don't have wise counsel, as the Bible talks about. You don't have, which is a coach or a mentor or even a therapist. You don't go to therapy because, Black people are like, I don't know. Or you are not surrounding yourself with like-minded women. There are groups for anything. If you wanted to be the best knitter on the planet, I bet you can type in knitting group on Facebook and find that group. So we have to focus on what matters, and that is the inner. Instead of getting all this Fenty beauty, and all of that is great. I love massages, like the rest of them. I want to go to Tulum too. And I will. But I decided for that time period in my life after 2017 to really focus on me and get a solid foundation so that when the winds and the storm do come, at least I knew that I was built on solid foundation and I was showing up how I wanted to as much as possible. And it's not about perfection, but the striving for is sexy and it's peaceful.
And that's another great point, because again, a lot of times women end up figuring that things have to be perfect, like you're working so hard to make things look perfect or be perfect. And again, that's just something else that you could run yourself down for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's no perfection. So I don't even know. I'd be like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? That's another waste of time and a way to break yourself down for no reason.
Absolutely.
At all. So, Reka, could you please let the listeners know where they can find out more about you?
Absolutely. So, of course, I'm on all the social media platforms. So that is Instagram, which is my number one. Twitter. I'm on Facebook as well, and TikTok as Just Me Reka. So JUSTME and then REKA. I always tell people I'm Reka, like Eureka, because I'm a good idea. So those are my social media handles. My website is singleUacademy.com, and it's YOU. So Single U Academy, fruitful.com. You look that up. You will get all of the information about even where my social media is, how to email me, the information on Single You Academy, which is my coaching program. If you want to sign up, if you want to read about it, hear testimonials from my clients, and then you can apply and sign up. I'm taking applications now. For sure, I have some room on my calendar, especially moving into 2022 for women who are looking to learn how to discover their worth and figure out how to learn or figure out how to set and keep boundaries with men. There we go. And my clients particularly are professional faith-based women who are looking for a better way to do this thing called, first of all, self-love and then relationships, because you're not getting a great experience out of that. So yeah, so Single You Academy. And then these are the conversations I have on my podcast titled Single You, the podcast. And now that's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and more. So that's how you can find me. I'm available. Hit me up. Slide into my DMs, girl.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, that's the good thing about technology as well, because now you can really get out there, get your message out there. And, you can actually hear from people who are your peers. And I think that's good, particularly for women entrepreneurs who want to go into that, or professionals who, focus on their career, that they know there's other people out here also going through the same things and they can learn from and share with. I think that's really key.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you're a certified NLP coach. So I just wanted to ask you real quick, how do you feel that adds to your toolkit?
Yeah. So, I got certified in neuro-linguistic programming, which was the study of like the neurons in the brain and how to switch our programming. Again, the unlearning and then to relearn. So like rising as the phoenix, right? And I definitely learn a lot from neuro-linguistic programming. And that program. But what I will tell you is NLP is literally the scripture that is be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's literally what it is. You have to change the neural pathways. You have to change the way you see and view single, the way you see and view love and relationships, because I promise you, love does not have to be this traumatic ride or die tornado relationship. And then finally 5 years, 10 years later, you get the man of your dreams out of this guy that you freaking became a martyr for. Unlearn that. And so, yeah, that's how it helped me. Plus I didn't know at the time what a coach was. I was like, okay, so what is a life coach and how do you become one? Like I was really, interested in that because I knew, like I said, I wanted to execute Maya Angelou's when you learn, you teach. So I needed a structure. If you guys know about the Enneagram, I'm a 5 on the Enneagram and I like to study things and get my little structure down and and so I got that. And that's how I created Single You Academy, out of learning how to be a coach, and so that's how it helps me for sure.
Well, that's great. And I think, again, these are all things that people can learn more about and reach out to you and the academy and your podcast and all the things that you're sharing, that, we could just help each other, and we can also, work to be better, within ourselves, so we could find that peace that, as you said, that's the thing that is worth so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we really shouldn't have to go through all the drama and angst, but, back in the day, I used to think that was what it was. It had to be drama.
You thought it had to be drama because married people say relationships are hard. And you have no idea what that means.
Nope.
Right. They're like, okay, well, so does that mean he could like cuss me out? How many times is he going to cheat on me? Or do I have to continue to minimize myself for him? Like, what do you mean relationships are hard? And that's definitely something we break down in Single You Academy as well. Because again, there will be no perfection, but there's a lot of stuff we can leave to the birds. We can leave that to the wind. Like this does not have to happen. I promise you. This part right here, we don't have to do that too. This cheating on you, nope, that doesn't have to. Nope, we're grown now. 35. I'm 38. You may be listening and you're 42 or whatever. You no longer. And honestly, a 22-year-old shouldn't have to put up with that either. But I'm talking to the women specifically in their 30s and 40s. Girl, no, you can get a better experience out of dating as long as you work on yourself first and really understand. And there is a difference between healthy hard versus toxic versus dysfunctional.
That definitely needs to be said a lot. So it needs to be said because some things, even if you haven't gone through it yourself, hearing other, when you get together with girlfriends and you're hearing things, and sometimes it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
Well,
because you stay, your girlfriends, you, whoever this is resonating with, you stay because your goal is to get married. That shouldn't be the goal. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be the goal. The goal for a relationship this is what my mentor says. Yes. So I'm a coach, but I have a coach as well. Cause I believe in continuing to work on myself because I want to be a good light. I feel like in this season, God has me to be a light, for single women. And I want to make sure that I am not a public success and a private failure. So I continue to work on myself. But anyway, he says relationships should be fruitful, flourishing, and fulfilling. So we have to stop getting this goal of wanting this, white wedding with the white dress and all of our friends and, maybe a beach wedding and stuff. Stop thinking about that and start thinking about, first of all, who you are. Get that down, start mastering yourself. Okay. And then how can this man add to my solitude? Because once you have peace, you want to hold on to that, right? So, okay, I like him. He likes me. Okay. Got a couple things I like about him. Let me just data collect on him for a bit and see if he can actually fit into my life and keep it peaceful. They love to tell us women, be a man's peace, be a man's peace. Okay. Well, he gets to be your peace as well. And also come healed, both of y'all. So that's all I'm saying. It's like we got to start at this foundation first instead of just jumping into dating because that's something people just do. Humans do this weird thing of dating and getting married and having kids. How do you do that? Like, it's like no blueprint. It's so weird.
Right. You're just supposed to know what you're doing.
Know what you're doing. Good luck.
Right.
Have fun. Girl, yes.
Right.
Yes. Listen to the butterflies. They'll tell you.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's true. That is so true. So Reka, I don't know if you have any final thoughts to share because you shared so much. So I don't want to put you on the spot if you feel you've already shared them, but.
Yeah. No, I'll just reiterate. Who is the woman that you want to be and do everything in your power to become her? And if you need guidance, I got you. So slide into my DMs and let's have a conversation.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This has really been a great conversation. Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of listeners. It's resonating with me for sure. So I'm sure other women who listen in and other people who really know that they need to work on some things within before they can get to the other parts if that's what they desire. Will, definitely get a lot out of this and also realize if they've had questions themselves of the things you're addressing, they're on the right tracks. They just have to keep working towards it from within.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really great.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, everyone. I know you enjoyed it. So make sure you share it on social media, share it with your friends, and check out Reka's site and her podcast and the academy, and just see what you could do to work on yourself from within. If you're busy with your business and everything else you're doing, you've got to take time for you too. So I hope that you will do that as well. So once again, it's Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next time. Bye bye.